Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle. Hey, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism, number 102. Actually, I didn't think I was going to go there, but I came across a book that's just too crazy of a story, and I suppose it's gotta be told. If you're any kind of a researcher or paying attention to what's going on in the world today, you have to be asking yourself, what in the world is going on? It's all crazy. Seemingly preparations for a new age, a new religion, a one-world religion, a new world order, and an obsession by the elitist, the people who control our planet, for the last 100 years, actually, even written 100 years ago by H.G. Wells, and many other authors in many books and documents, and legislation passed, like a document called Global 2000, Eco-Science by Paul Ehrlich, books I've shown here by Paul Ehrlich, The Population Bomb, and another one by the Club of Rome, Overpopulation, Population Control. Things like sustainability, biodiversity, etc., etc. Destruction of Christianity, the hatred seemingly by the Theosophist Society, Helena Blavatsky, and the others that are into this other New Age religion, mysticism, Mystery School of Babylon, the occult witchcraft, including astrology, the Palladians, Syrians, gray aliens, Antarctica. So I've been studying going on 12 years, reading a couple hundred books by now at least, hundreds of magazines, thousands of videos I've watched, tens of thousands more of press releases and other research material that I've printed out, put in boxes, cataloged, all in the pursuit for me to try to figure out what the heck is going on planet Earth. So then I came across this book. I was watching another Nibiru, an incoming body apparently towards Earth. Apparently Nibiru is a planet, several planets circling a dark star. It doesn't glow like our star. It's more like a glowing ember you would see in your barbecue grill. And their time is different. Their days, I think a month's long of our days is like one of their days. So on Nibiru, one day is like 30 days on Earth. So when, apparently, if there were these Anunnaki entities who came here, from heaven to earth came, as Zecharia Sitchin would say, author of The 12th Planet, and also author of this book, The Lost Book of Enki. So as I was saying, I was watching my friend from Key West, Florida, Richard, called me up. I'd sent him a couple videos. He sends me stuff, and other people. And he said, Rick, what do you think? Is there really this incoming planetary body called Nemesis, Herculumbus, the Destroyer, Nibiru, and the Dark Star? Is there some gravitational forces between our star and that glowing star? Or is it a binary star system that has an orbit like this, and every now and then they come closer together? 100,000 years, 26,000 years, I don't know. A million years. But apparently it does happen. According to material like this and cuneiform tablets, stone tablets, where they kept their records thousands of years ago, in the Middle East, where they have all those pyramids with hieroglyphics etched in stone, with creatures like this on them. So apparently Zecharia Sitchin, according to him and others, could read the cuneiform tablets and read this stuff, memoirs and prophecies of an extraterrestrial God. And of course, a lot of people ask, who is God? What is God? Are there aliens? What's with all these sightings, UFOs, interdimensional beings popping into existence, popping out of existence? What kind of technologies do these Anunnaki, if they exist, have? Have there been aliens on planet all along? I've gone over many books and material, like that one book with Peter Moon and Rudy, with the underground research laboratory or dwelling or facility in a mountain in Romania. Gucci Mountains, you can look it up. Those gigantic stones in Lebanon near the cedar forest. Stones bigger than school buses, bigger than buildings, apparently were laid out that way so that these landing craft from space could land on them and take off. Lebanon is north of Israel. So I think Israel has everything to do with this. I think the Freemasons have everything to do with this. And serpent beings, maybe. I've been watching more Palladian videos. And you got the Palladian aliens, the Syrian aliens. And according to Barbara Manichek, probably saying her name wrong, the pixies, and then of course my other research material, the cherubim mentioned in the Bible, the genie in the Middle East, like I dream of genie in a bottle. I'm sure they don't come out of bottles, I believe. Angels, ghosts, spirits, reptilian creatures, part DNA to many humans. Maybe there's a hybrid, and maybe these are the elites operating behind the scenes, who seem to have a thirst and a hunger for human flesh and sacrificing humans. So it's just a lot to ponder, and I've certainly said some crazy stuff in my videos that I've researched and thrown up my hands and said, what the heck is going on here? But anyways, in pursuit of my search to find the answer to that question, this book, I was watching that video on Nibiru. I think it was Marshall Masters and the another speaker, recent video, and they mentioned this was a highly recommended book to read. So I went through my library of 500 or 600 books, and fortunately it was there. I had it. Been collecting books for 12 years. So I'm just going to try to give a short synopsis of some of this material and then a more in-depth study of some of it. But apparently, according to this book, about 4,000 years ago, all that had been achieved unraveled in a nuclear calamity brought about by the visitors to Earth in the course of their own rivalries and war. So if these entities, Anunnaki, people from planet Nibiru, truly came to Earth and established settlements, apparently because they needed some gold to take back to their planet to seed in the atmosphere, because it was diminishing. Like here they say on Earth the ozone layer is diminishing. And many people on Earth are aware that apparently they're dumping chemicals in our sky on planet Earth. Apparently using an abundance material we have, waste from coal power plants. When you burn coal, they have piles and piles of coal ash. And apparently it's quite expensive to dispose of. You can't just put it anywhere, because when it rains and water gets with this coal ash, it runs fluidly through streams and creeks and pollutes all the soil and rivers and waterways. It's caused horrendous problems. Just storing it, it's not as bad, but it's almost as bad as storing uranium waste, I suppose. They can't find a way to get rid of it, and if they do get rid of it, it's very expensive. It makes you wonder what they're dumping or forcing into the fracking wells all over the country, which I learned this recently. That the casings, when they dump chemicals into these wells, hoping to create some kind of chemical reaction so they can get some kind of gas. So here's the natural earth cavity, and they're injecting this stuff. But the casings that go into the ground are only designed to keep everything separated from our natural water aquifers and wells and etc. for 30 years. So how long have they been fracking now? 10 years? So it means 20 years all those casings are going to break down all across the country, maybe the world, ruining all the water supply. Meanwhile, they're trying to force on the rest of us that we're polluting the planet with CO2. Our breath creates CO2. And they're promoting sustainability, biodiversity, and they want to force the people from the suburbs into the cities. A lot of people know they want to disarm the people and they're taking away more and more freedoms. Very bizarre, I must admit. Meanwhile, if you read some books, and you can look it up on the internet, the powers that be, the governments, the leaders, the elitists, are building underground facilities. So let me get on with this book, and it seems to tie in with all this, including the Freemasons, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, and all this other goings-on with the Mystery School of Babylon, the Hermetic teachings, the Kabbalah, the Zionists, the people who want to be the aristocrats. Descendants, maybe, from these Anunnaki, who wanted to mine gold on Earth, and the people were created, we people, from apparently, according to this book. And as a disclaimer, let me say this right now. This is not my philosophy. This is not what I believe. But apparently a lot of people do. So it might behoove us to find out what they believe. What is the story, as incredible as it may be. Alright. Page 2. So they have all these stories, like a book you can get called The Epic of Gilgamesh. Some giant being and his activities thousands of years ago. And the secrets of the gods. And apparently these Anunnaki were forced to evacuate planet Earth because, get this, it's some kind of issue like global warming or global cooling. Basically, the planet was heating inside because some magnetic effects and interaction of this incoming other planetary body. The Nibiru system and the Earth solar system were coming in closer proximity. And in our solar system, about halfway out, Earth is the third planet, but we have something called an asteroid belt. And apparently, beyond that, a couple more planets. Go look on a map. It just might be very interesting for people to see what is there. So if there is this interaction between a black sun, dark sun, and remember the black sun, the Hitler regime was into that, as well as the Vril Society, the Thule Society, and ancient societies from planets, not planets, but continents that apparently sunk in the past, like Atlantis or Hyperborea, which was to the north of Germany. So there's a lot of mysteries here. This book seems to fit a lot of it together. But these Anunnaki beings who created humans apparently from other Earth-like creatures, even mixing their own blood and semen with the Earth creatures' ovaries, eggs, and they experimented, according to this book, over and over and over until they got it right. And finally, they really got it right when they used their own DNA, mixing it with the human mixture, and they created a hybrid, I guess, Anunnaki creature, half Anunnaki and half human. So go look at the hieroglyphics and stuff like that, ancient monuments. Makes us all wonder. I don't think I'm going to last too long out here today doing this video. There seems to be a bunch of mosquitoes. So the Book of the Secret of Thought, Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge. Talks about Moses here throwing down the tablets and then having to get some new tablets when he found the Hebrews worshipping a golden calf. And they got books of wars, of Yiwa, Book of Jasher, Book of Righteousness, Book of Adam and Eve. All this is mentioned in this preface on this book. And of course, the Library of Alexandria that was destroyed by the peoples of the Catholic Church. Somebody was trying to destroy historic records. So it is only thus that we know that the second king Ptolemy commissioned, circa 270 BC, an Egyptian priest whom the Greeks called Manetho, to compile a history and a prehistory of Egypt. So like I said, is somebody trying to rewrite Christian history as I know it, world history? It seems like it. The pharaonic dynasties with pharaohs and leaders, the divine reigns he wrote before 10,000 years before the flood, continued for thousands of years thereafter, the latter period having witnessed battles and wars among the gods. So what I think I'd like to try to do concerning this book is to give you a synopsis of the story the way that I see it from reading the book. You can see I've read everything. So apparently they had these tablets, like this tablet. This is the third tablet. And what did I highlight there? Alulu is not dead. They asked each other, could indeed he on another planet be? They were with disbelief. So let me tell you the story. Apparently, picture this, a planet in space called Nibiru. I got a couple pictures here. These are some of the artist renderings. Apparently, it's a huge planet. A red planet. Not like Earth. And people like astronomer Harrington apparently spotted something, reported it, somewhere out there in space. People these days are saying when they look up at our sun, they're seeing a second sun. You can go online to Soho, S-O-H-O, telescopes in space, monitoring the sun 24/7. And apparently, I look at it all the time, but somebody apparently saw something, the red dot there, in the center of this video. So the story is there's another solar system that interacts with our solar system every 26,000 years. Alright, so let me tell you the story. On this planet Nibiru, the atmosphere was failing. And they tried to put different particles in the atmosphere to try and stop the harmful radiation from coming in on the people, the planet, the animals, everything. And the one thing they found that seemed to work, according to Zecharia Sitchin's books, and the apparent translations from some cuneiform prism, triangle-shaped maybe, tablets, where they took clay, soft clay, and then they wrote on them, and then they baked the clay, and these things apparently last forever. So he found these thousands and thousands of cuneiform tablets over there in the Middle East. And they told a story. So on this planet Nibiru, whose atmosphere was failing, like on Earth we have a hole in the ozone layer, and they say harmful radiations can come through. And on Earth right now we have a lot of geoengineering, sky spraying of chemicals in our atmosphere going on. And of course they tell the rest of us it's human-caused global warming, which I think is a big lie. I think there's another motive, and maybe this story will tell it. So on with the story. So the king of Nibiru, the person who was king at that time, the entity, they call these beings Anunnakis, wasn't getting any problems solved, like presidents we have in the United States or the rest of the world. If people get displeased, they want to get somebody else in there. So one of the other bloodlines of planet Nibiru stepped up and felt he was justified because of his family bloodline to take over the kingship of Nibiru and help solve this problem, their problem, with the hole in their atmosphere. And so the way they solved the problem on who gets to be the king, when one challenges another one, according to this book. I don't want to read from it in too much in detail. They wrestled naked. And the winner takes all, gets to be the king. And the loser has to leave. So anyways, the guy who was king, who was challenged, did lose. And he was quite irritated, as one can suspect. So he wanted to get the heck out of there. He went to their spaceport, and he was going to find a solution to Nibiru's atmospheric problems by going into space and finding a planet or asteroid or some planetary body where there was enough gold that they could mine and bring back to Nibiru to fix the atmosphere problem. the shield. And they had star charts. They were knowledgeable. And there's something called in this their science the hammered bracelet. And here on solar system, Earth's solar system, with the Sun and Mars and Earth and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn, anywhere's on the outer layer in between a couple planets is something called the asteroid belt. And I think that was the hammered bracelet. So leaving this other solar system that apparently adjoins our solar system, and they come closer together and they go further apart every 26,000 years. And they may not be parallel, one may be like this sideways, and they come together like this, as we just saw in those pictures. One goes like this, and this one goes like this, and every 26,000 years they conjoin. And to get into our solar system, you have to go through the asteroid belt, which they called the hammered bracelet. So he left this ex-king who lost the wrestling match for domination of the Nibiru people. And he was going to venture into Earth's solar system. And he had to go through the hammered bracelet. And he equipped his ship with a lot of weapons. So when he entered the asteroid belt, he blasted his way through, and he came across a gigantic ball, Jupiter. And the gravitational field started pulling him towards Jupiter, but he managed to veer off and shear away. And then he came across Saturn, Mars, whatever, the moon, and finally he beheld Earth, and he managed to splash down. So all alone, Alula, this ex-king, started to survey the planet Earth. He found marshes, dry land, oceans, and he used his metal detector for all practical purposes. He had some kind of sensor machine, and he detected gold in the water. And he had a beaming device aboard his ship, so he beamed a message back to Nibiru and told them that he had found a planet in the adjoining solar system, and there was gold, and he could be the salvation of planet Nibiru, but on one condition, is that they made him king again. Would he guide them through the hammered bracelet and into the solar system to the planet? So back on Nibiru, all the leaders had a big meeting, paraphrasing in earthling terms. They had different kind of language the way they spoke, almost kind of biblical speak. Here's what some of the engravings look like on the cuneiform tablets. And we know about the hieroglyphics over there in Egypt depicting these different kings. And Isis, Osiris, Horus, represented by the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill. So pay attention here, and you kind of put the dots together. You're going to start to see a lot of similarities in the religious story in the Christian Bible, and this story that these cuneiform tablets that Zecharia Sitchin found in Sumeria in the Middle East, in the ruins of some ancient city. So anyways, they departed some more ships from Nibiru under Alula, the previous king's guidance, who was on Earth. And he awaited them, and they splashed down where he told them to, and they greeted each other and investigated the area and started the proceeds of gigantic pumps pumping the water into these gigantic crystal filters. And it was a tough deal. They weren't getting the quantities of gold to serve their purpose. So a little frustration set in, and they decided to look elsewhere where there might be more quantities of gold to be obtained on planet Earth. So apparently they had these local chariots flying ships like helicopters and planes, and they were exploring planet Earth. Just trying to give you a clear idea what the story is in this book. Go buy the book, and you'll be just flabbergasted as you read it. So anyways, they did find some higher densities amount of gold, as we all know, in the mountains and in some valleys and other places on the planet. And so they worked hard and made a shipment of the gold back to Nibiru through the hammered bracelet, the asteroid belt. And everybody on Nibiru was celebrating, and they crushed it into a fine powder dust and used rockets and put it in their atmosphere. Much like we see these days with the planes spraying apparently coal ash, aluminum, barium, strontium, aluminum, and some even say dried blood and other kinds of viruses, bacterium, for God knows what, they don't tell us, but it does seem to be having detrimental effects on we people. Breathing, heavy metals get in our blood. But getting back to their story, it just was interesting about the similarity, dumping stuff in the atmosphere. So anyways, they started digging tunnels. And mining for gold. And they only had 50 of these Anunnaki people in the initial stages. So there was a lot of, as you can imagine, complaining going on. And so they had to beam another message to Nibiru. We need more people, more ships. And Nibiru beamed back going, we need more gold and we need it faster as an emergency situation on planet Nibiru. So, as the story continues, the frustration continued and the rebellion started on planet Earth. The Anunnaki did not like to live under those kinds of harsh conditions. And apparently there were numerous problems. There was limited fruits and vegetables they could eat on Earth compared to what they had in Nibiru. There really wasn't any edible animals like they were used to. No refreshments like maybe alcoholic beverages as we know them, fermented fruits and stuff. And there weren't any women, and so there was some problems to solve. And apparently Enki and Enlil were the two sons of the king on Nibiru, Enki and Enlil. And they were at each other all the time for control. But apparently Enlil was actually the firstborn son by his wife, but the second-born son by the king. Apparently they had concubines. So some kind of prince and royalty argument was going on. So anyways, Enlil was put in charge, and Enki was a scientist. And he thought one solution to the labor problem on Earth would be because as a scientist he put his house where he built it in a very beautiful area, get this, that he called Eden, the Garden of Eden. And you're going to notice a lot of similarities in my story that I'm telling you right now. With these words, you're going to scratch your head and go, well, in the Bible it says Garden of Eden, and Enki builds his mansion, house, and all his environmental activities, growing different kinds of food and grains, and even having some lambs and animals shipped to Earth. Animals that were apparently never on Earth before. But he noticed these native animals on Earth that walked on the two hind legs. Maybe they were gorillas, monkeys, or Neanderthal man, I don't know. But he describes it that way, and he had an aha moment and said, well, I can re-engineer them, because they knew how to manipulate DNA and genetics, engineering, and maybe create some workers to relieve the Anunnaki workers. So anyways, they had a big discussion back with Antu, president of Nibiru, Enki, the inventor scientist, and his brother Enlil, and some of the other leading Anunnakis. Naruto was, I think, Enki's wife, a scientist, and she was way on board. Antu and Nibiru said, whatever you need, do it. We need the gold now. Enlil was completely opposed to it, period. He said, let's develop or engineer smarter technologies and machines. So anyways, as time was passing and they were still processing the ore and shipping some as they could, even with a way station on Mars, so that they could ship it from Earth to Mars and from Mars through the asteroid belt to Nibiru, and then more people, more crews, more equipment would come back to Mars, to Earth, over hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years, hundreds of years. These people lived a very long time, by the way. So Enki in the laboratory started fooling around. He wound up making some grotesque creatures, which, by the way, off of the end of Long Island, in some of my previous videos, they had these black op laboratories, and they were doing the same kinds of things, trying to create creatures. Even Hitler was trying to create a supreme race of being, even apparently, according to Rabbi Marvin Antelman, using the Vril Society, Thule Society, Black Sun Society, Black Star. There's another occult group. Anyways, it was communicating with the interdimensional beings, and for simplicity purposes, witchcraft, occult, magic. Mystery School of Babylon. And apparently he abducted a gypsy man in Munich, Germany, sacrificed him, not necessarily Hitler himself, but he was organizing it, and it was in Hitler's diary. They sacrificed during this satanic ritual, which a lot of that is going on Earth right now. And an interdimensional spiritual being did come through a portal, was documented, but a girl laying on the altar next door, next to the guy who was sacrificed, did not apparently get impregnated. So it was a failed satanic ritual to try to get the interdimensional beings to impregnate the woman, according to Rabbi Marvin Antelman, leader of the American Jewish Congress in the United States, the guy who wrote a couple books to eliminate the Opate, Volume 1, Volume 2, and exposes all about the bad Jews who turn towards Satanism and are involved in these kinds of rituals, which are apparently the same thing as we deal with the Illuminati and the high-level Freemasonic cults, Rosicrucians, witchcraft, and all the other mystery School of Babylon cults, of which there are thousands, maybe more. And one of their symbols is the rainbow, and we know the all-seeing eye, the triangle, the 3-6 sign, and what was the other one, the devil sign. So apparently we're dealing now with two things in my story. These Anunnaki peoples and interdimensional beings that Hitler was into in current times. And by the way, when I was reading the Lost Book of Enki, they even believed in a creator God and likely high-level spiritual beings that mentions in there, they mention when they do die, their soul does ascend. So I found that rather interesting. So anyways, Enki, in his experiments to try to create a human being, they didn't call it a human being, but some kind of slave worker, kept failing, creating all these grotesque creatures. And it was disappointing. And with his Naruto, I think was his wife or sister. Well, they married their sister, so his sister would have been his wife, half-sister. Which is interesting because Osiris and Isis were wife and brother-sister, and bore a son Horus, who apparently later on, after Osiris was dead, was having relations with his mother. So much for what goes on in these beings. Maybe Osiris and Isis and Horus are these Anunnaki, different kind of DNA than humans, and apparently humans, the breeds we have today, are half Earth DNA and half Anunnaki DNA, according to the story by Zecharia Sitchin. So they had an aha moment in the laboratory, Naruto and Enki, and they said, well, maybe we need to start thinking in terms of earthlings and use earth vessels instead of our metal or glass vessels we brought from Nibiru, to mix the sperm and the egg, when then we place it back in the womb of the alien, or the human at that time was alien to them. And so they got some clay and they made some clay pots, and then they mixed it, put it into the earthling being, mixing it and altering the DNA a little bit. And it still wasn't working. They were getting closer. So they had another aha moment. They go, maybe we need to give it an essence. Make the creature in our own image. You see what I'm saying? There we go again. Biblical terms. Make the creature in our own image. So they debated this, Enki and Naruto, and they wouldn't tell anybody else. How insane was that, to be mixing their Anunnaki beings from this other planet, their blood, their cells, their sperm, their ovaries, with the animals of planet Earth to try to create a worker slave. But they did it. So they took the ovary out of the earthling being that walked on the hind legs, and used some of Enki's sperm and Enki's blood, and put it into the clay vessel, put it back into the earthling being. Keep wanting to say human, but it wasn't a human yet. And it came out much better, according to this story. But it still wasn't smart and bright enough and perfect enough. So they had to do some more experimenting. So they had another aha moment. And Naruto came up with the idea. She goes, maybe we take the ovary out of the earthling being and use the same formula, Anunnaki, sperm and blood, but put the egg in my womb. Well, that horrified Enki. He goes, are you crazy? You can't put these animals' egg in your womb. You could have some kind of creature inside of you. They said, but we need to save Nibiru. It's that important and worth the risk. So they did it. And the 9 months went by, and she bore a perfect human being. And so then they did some more work to do it again, and she bore another one. The first one was a male, and get this, they named it Adama, like Adam, like the Bible. I'm reading this book just saying to myself, that can't be. These cuneiform tablets with these symbols of these beings. From heaven to earth came. So there's a picture here. Zecharia Sitchin's this book, a sample of the tablet. This is the 5th tablet. See the gray behind the words? But if you look up close, it's actually tablet etchings, which tells the story. And the 5th tablet and the 6th tablet and the 4th tablet all have different tales to tell. So the first 2 creatures, born of Nibiru's womb, with the earth being's egg and the Anunnaki sperm and blood, created 2 perfect human beings. Adama, when I read that, I go Adam and Eve, and the other one was Eve, a slightly different name. And they, in turn, had 2 beings, you're not going to believe this, spelled differently, but a Cain, like Cain and Abel. And so they were training them and teaching these people, and they wanted to start breeding them in mass. So they were kind of perplexed, you know. Enki looks at Naruto and goes, well, your body can't do all that. And she was in charge of the hospital and nursing and the medical establishment. She said, well, we'll get a bunch of my nurses. Just paraphrasing in English terms. And so she called a bunch of the nurses from the city where the hospital was and showed them the children and told them what was needed and asked for volunteers. A bulk of them volunteered, said, yeah, we'll do it. They were fascinated, actually. The children were really beautiful. Slightly smaller versions, I guess, of the Anunnaki. And interestingly enough, too, apparently the Anunnaki's penis didn't have a foreskin covering it, but these humans, now I'll call them humans, that they created, their penises did have a foreskin covering it. And of course, now on planet Earth, as a Christian, we grow up, we get circumcised when we're infants, and they take off that skin, so that I suppose now our penises would look like the Anunnaki penises. So anyways, the nurses went through the same experiment with the earth animals, the beings that walked on their hind legs, furry animals. So again, I don't know if they're an ape or a monkey or something like that. Heck, it could be a bear. A bear walks on its hind legs. But anyways, it was proving successful. And finally, the word got out all over Earth that they had a different name for it back then. And messages were beamed back to Nibiru, to Atu, the king. And it was celebrations on Nibiru. And they wanted to get this project going. But anyways, as I said before, while they were training him, they took the 2 sons of Adama and Eve, called Cain, and another name. I'll have to look it up here. When I read the book, you'll hear it. And Cain was put in charge of, I think, agriculture. And Abel was put in charge of the animals, or vice versa. They were given 2 different jobs, to produce animals for food and growing stuff for food. And had a drought one year, according to this book. And there was a shortage of water, so Cain took his animals, so Cain was raising the animals, into Abel's crop fields so they could get some water. And it was trampling Abel's crops and his workings. And this angered Abel, so he screamed and hollered at Cain. And it's C-A-I-N, like Cain. Cain. And so Cain got very upset and grabbed a rock and smashed Abel's head in. So just so funny, this biblical story, creating man in our own image, The first offspring with the Anunnaki receiving the eggs in their own wombs with the Anunnaki sperm and blood. And the first two beings are Adama, something like that, and the female Eve, and they produce two sons, Cain and Abel. Different variations of the spelling, but if you look at it, it pronounces that way. So they had a big gathering, and the Anunnaki and the leadership were all appalled that one of the brothers killed the other brother. And interestingly enough, the mother and father, Adama and his Eve, they had another son, and it was Seth. I guess another variations of Seth. And here's another part of the interesting story. So now they have Seth, which replaces Abel, the son, and they cast Cain, K-A-I-N, to some far outback to be a wanderer. How apropos is that to the Christian story? So they exiled him with the other people so he could produce more offspring. So there's that Cain offspring, the murderer. And Seth was the one who was being the seed with all the other humans, and they were proliferating, constantly fornicating, because they weren't wearing any clothes, these humans now created by the Anunnaki. But they could be taught to work and serve and all that other stuff. And if I looked at some of the pictures here in this book, it shows the Anunnaki, as you can see, that are dressed right there, interfacing with the created beings who are obviously naked. Like right here. You can see the naked created human being and the obviously taller Anunnaki sitting in the chair. And this symbol, the bird with the two heads in the middle of this screen, isn't that the symbol on the top of the Freemasonic lodges? Isn't that the symbol on the Russian flag? Morals and Dogma, didn't I show that in the book? I'll get the Morals and Dogma and show that again. See, you start to see this story coming out of Zecharia Sitchin. It's almost like it's a replacement story. The old, what's the old coinage there? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? So which came first? Was this story, as translated from the cuneiform tablets by Zecharia Sitchin's original and honest? Personally, I don't think so. Then the biblical story was that created from ancient myths to give us all some biblical story. Again, I think there's some truth in all of it when we consider at this juncture of this conversation, we're dealing with at least three types of creatures or entities that exist in our reality. One would be the Anunnaki. The other one would be the humans that were created. And from my investigation with archons and angels and CERN, the collider in Geneva, opening portals, aliens, UFOs popping in and out of existence. So we seem to have, and even the Anunnaki believe when you die your soul goes somewhere, and there is this creator God. Even the Anunnaki believe that. And they created man in their own image. And it is becoming my belief, I'm learning as I go, that all essences of life, dogs, cats, deer, cows, humans, have this spiritual essence in them. So I've got further to go in my education, trying to really feel what I think, but I do believe that this creator God or whatever did send Jesus, and he was sent here to teach humanity the right way to live, as was Moses 2,000 years earlier, who gave us the 10 Commandments. And Jesus was teaching to treat others how you want to be treated. And apparently, whoever's ruling on this planet knows about this ancient mythology, Anunnaki, Nibiru story. So to continue the story and try to end this video, I'm going to make some more on that book and read from that book. But when you see part 2 or part 3, and I'm reading some of what's in there, it'll all make sense. So just for some supporting information, interesting information, one of the books I collected over the years was this book, Herculumbus, or Red Planet. I don't know if it's something like a little biblical or something for kids, but you get the idea. Earth, the yellow sun, and this red planetary body or sun. Call it a planet. Anyways, this was published second edition, 2003. Trying to see when the first edition was. Looks like 2000. So what are we dealing with when you get books like this? But through the work of the disintegration of the defects, the essence grows, becomes stronger, and manifests with more clarity. I will give you an example. This tree is supported by its main roots. They do not feed it, but only to hold up the tree for the wind. So some interesting stuff in here. Astral unfolding in this book. So why was somebody publishing stuff like this years ago? First edition, I think, was in Spanish. The guy was from South America. Then I was thinking about some other stuff I'd gone over. The gold of the gods. It seems to me that it's unquestionable with things like the book I mentioned earlier in this video with Peter Moon and Radu Sinamar. Apparently in Romania there was a alien base for giants discovered. And the chair itself, the seat probably came up to my head. In other words, it was obviously a chair for giants. So only some creature like this probably could have sat in the chair that was discovered in this mountain, the Busigi, B-U-C-E-G-I, if you want to look it up, mountain, in 2003, an unexplored area, Roman intelligence service, alien base for giants discovered in Busigi Mountain. So the top of the table was up here. So only a giant could have sat in the chair. And the control instruments were of super high tech. As like what's mentioned in the as we read further in this book and in upcoming videos. Sometimes I get tongue-tied. But they mention all kinds of high-tech equipment. Scanners, beamers, crushers, communication equipment. So apparently there was some super high-tech stuff found in Romania. And apparently the Bilderberger group and the high-level Illuminati Freemasons and those in charge, Zionist, forced their way to control the Romanian government to have control and access to this facility in Romania. And there's all kinds of pictures here. It's a fascinating story if you want to go look it up. And apparently in this tunnel in Romania, in this lab, I guess you could call it, with all this high-tech equipment, including a radiation field, when they try to make entrance into this enclosure, several of the soldiers disintegrated, zapped, and they had to figure out a way to bypass the electromagnetic force field, which is obviously, this equipment was thousands and thousands of years old. And in the story that I'm going to start reading from the Lost Book of Enki in the upcoming videos, part 2, part 3, there was the Great Flood, and what the Anunnaki did about that. And apparently the Great Flood was caused because some incoming, their planet was getting closer to Earth, Nibiru, which you can look on the internet and see all kinds of fear-mongering videos, people talking about that. And lately it's becoming a little alarming. This is September 20th, and they said that, what is today? December 20th, Tuesday, 2016. So there's stuff in the news right now, a bunch of alerts of a gigantic incoming asteroid supposed to cause tsunamis and all that. So the fear-mongering and all the propaganda is still ongoing on planet Earth right now. And it does seem to have something to do with this. A lot of people are talking about Nibiru. And in the Zecharia Sitchin's book I'm going over right now, they talk about, as they got this whole Earth situation developed and the humans created and the mining perfected and shipments of gold heading to Nibiru, all of a sudden a new problem developed, and that Nibiru was coming closer towards Earth, and it was causing global heating of the planet and the heating of Mars, as we have now been looking at for the last 10 years in my research. And other planets like Jupiter, the big black dot has moved and storms have developed on Jupiter. So whatever, apparently, from my interpretation, true or not, there seems to be some kind of disturbance in the whole solar system. Now again, are the powers that be making all this up so they can bring about the new age and the new world order? And is it at some kind of guidance and instigation of interdimensional beings, demons and spiritual beings, which apparently seem to exist? So I'm going to finish this video. So even Eric von Donovich, always Daniken, and I do apologize for saying some of these names wrong on some of these authors and books. That's why I show the books. And I do encourage people to go buy these books. This book alone, if you pick it up for $5 or $10, has to be worth something for this colored artwork. 3-foot gold statues, 3 foot tall, and even depictions of the language they use in the mountains of Ecuador, in the high Andes, which in the Lost Book of Enki, they had a big argument about whether they should let mankind survive the Great Flood, the deluge they call it. Because apparently when Nibiru did get closer, that solar system, it caused the North Pole and the South Pole, the ice sheets, to slip and plunge into the oceans, causing 200, 300, 400-foot tidal waves, according to the Lost Book of Enki. That was the theory, what happened. So anyways, it was a big debate between Enki, the inventor of the humans, and Enlil, the Anunnaki leader. He despised the new creation of the humans, and he wanted them to be allowed to be destroyed with the Great Flood. But Enki and Naruto conspired to save a remnant of them on different parts of the planet, which, by the way, the cave where they found these statues, Eric Van Doniken, apparently were cut out with some high-tech lasers thousands of years ago in an effort to save some of the humans, which, as even the Hopi Indians in the Midwest, out by the Navajo and the reservation in Arizona and New Mexico, report that there were some other beings who helped them build facilities inside the mountains to survive the Great Flood. And apparently they did this all over the world. You notice how the story's starting to come together. Another book I went over, you can go look up my video, Lost Star, Walter Crittenden. Lost Star, get it? Apparently the Africans, some of the native tribes, had documented evidences and etchings and markings on caves. I just saw the picture, but apparently they had some kind of idea of some incoming body. Some communication or some drawings related to the star system Sirius. So who were these ancient Egyptian Anunnaki looking characters, and why did the people in Africa know about this? And as I showed in the previous videos about Walter Crittenden, apparently his family, or these people, were also Masons. Families were Masons. Look at some of the stuff that's in this new book, the New Age material, the Shaka systems. So this whole story seems to be coming together. And then on Nexus magazine, my favorite magazines that I've been collecting since my investigation began in 2005, The Return of Planet X interview with Zecharia Sitchin. I'm not going to try to read these. I've read them in previous videos, and I'll be looking at them again. But I think I'm just trying to make a point. And this one says, ancient texts reveal alien intervention in our history. Here where my finger is again. Nexus magazine. Oh, invasion of black-eyed beings, and also climate gate chills, man-made global warming theory. So apparently this whole global warming theory is a big hoax, and apparently they're an invasion of different kinds of beings, black-eyed beings. And then the global climate gate, this would have been 2010. So this year, without a doubt, 2016, seems to have been the hottest summer, at least I'm experiencing here in the North Carolina mountains, a couple thousand feet up. My first 6 years, 5+ years here, it was always cool in the all summer and not so cold in the winter. An ideal climate here. There is an ideal climate here. Was. But I noticed, and so do a lot of friends of mine, including my friend Richard in Key West, but they're spraying chemicals in the sky like there's nobody's business, painting it pasty white instead of blue, and I'm saying it's causing some kind of magnifying glass effect. And with those heavy metal particles they're putting in the sky, and with the HARP microwave transmitters strategically located all over the planet, the combination of those technologies could probably cause the disturbance on Earth with the weather, earthquakes, and other geoengineering pole shift. little bit more supporting information here. We got the human microchip agenda in this Nexus magazine, 2010, November. Why are they wanting to microchip all of us? When we remember, thousands of years ago, they created humans to be slaves. So this return to the golden age, this New World Order, and apparently, obviously focused agenda of the United Nations in these world elitists who think they're better than the rest of us. They want, like the Georgia USA Guidestones say, and the population bomb by Paul Ehrlich, or Ecoscience by, go look this up, 900-page book, Ecoscience, by Paul Ehrlich, or Global 2000 report from Iron Mountain, and many more books and articles and press releases and pictures. They apparently, like the Anunnaki thousands of years ago, created humans, and like Enlil, who was Enki's brother in charge of planet Earth and the mining of gold, he detested humans. He wanted them all destroyed in the flood. And when they did propagate, like rabbits, the humans, they didn't wear clothes, and everywhere you looked they were mating, according to Zecharia Sitchin's book. They were a little overrun with humans, and they wanted to control that. So it just makes you wonder if the planet Nibiru is returning, and if there are communications with our leaders and these alien beings. Has somebody made some deductions that they don't need this many people on planet Earth, and they don't like the people using up resources or even making noise? Because even back then, Enlil would get irritated because he couldn't get his sleep because there was much noise going on. And my experience in Florida was a lot of the elitists wanted to create more laws and more restrictions to quit people from using boats on the intercoastal waterway or jet skis, because they paid good money for those properties and they wanted their peace and quiet. So apparently this aristocratic, elitist, better than thou attitude is prevalent on planet Earth. And like the Jewish Utopia by Professor Higger, Robert Williams in his book, The Ultimate World Order, another video book review I made, these people believe that they do have a better DNA and a higher intellect, intelligence, and the rest of us, like H.G. Wells said, are animals not to be trusted. So they think we're like animals, and just like animals, too many deer in the forest, they thin out the herd. So apparently, whatever people are in control, or beings that are in control on planet Earth today, and all these books and documents I've gone over, there is a focused intent on a new age, a one world religion, as the Pope said. Which, by the way, the Pope today, yesterday, about 19 days straight in a row, is supposed to be a gathering of religious leaders all over the world in Jerusalem, Israel, to have a consecration. And that's pretty high stuff, you know, when you consecrate something. So what are they going to consecrate what to? A lot of people are speculating they're going to consecrate Lucifer, Satan, as the new god. And then, of course, in New York this month, they're supposed to be erecting the Temple of Baal, Archway of Baal, a portal, entranceway to another dimension for the devil, satanic, interdimensional beings. I don't know, but that's what they're doing. Just interesting. And then they're also in the news that people are freaking out on YouTube videos you can go look up But they say some gigantic asteroids have been detected about to splash into the ocean and cause tidal waves and tsunamis all over New York. And so with the technologies they have now and nuclear weapons and all this other stuff, can they fake some of these events? Is all this stuff here with the Zecharia Sitchin's interpretation of the cuneiform tablets, is all that sort of fake? When to me it seems like it's matching the religion in Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, or Isis Unveiled, Rosicrucian Initiation, Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. This mystery school of Babylon that William Cooper talks about in his series. So what's true and what's false? This information is out there. Here's some more pictures. You can go look up Planet Nibiru on Yahoo image site and do what I did and download these to your computer and put them on a little stick and go to the pharmacy and print them out. So there's the Milky Way galaxy in the background, and apparently some interactive other solar system with our solar system. You got the you find some nice pictures here for to get printed out for just $8-9. This is a get 50 pictures or more. Seems to be something invaluable to have for your library. Cheap way to do it. But here you got Nibiru coming in from where my finger is towards our sun. See where my finger is? Right above it. And then to the towards the sun from my finger, you see the asteroid belt. So apparently if Nibiru goes through the asteroid belt, or at the very least it doesn't go through, but its magnetic field will upset the asteroid belt and send a lot of those asteroids in a helter-skelter path, likely smashing into Earth. Notice how big the sun is compared to Earth. There's Earth in the center there. And as I've said before, wouldn't you, if you were on the moon, Mr. Armstrong, and the other astronauts, take a selfie or take a picture of your other buds with that sun behind them? Would you take a picture of the Earth with that sun behind it? Wouldn't you? I would. Why are there no pictures like that? Why are there no pictures of Earth from our other rockets we've sent into space, turning around looking back with the sun in the background? So apparently here's Nibiru's path as it runs through our solar system. You can see it goes through the asteroid belt. The red line is Nibiru's path. In the center of the video is our sun, and so you see the two solar systems interact every 26,000 years. Looks like some more of that alien writings. You'll find these pictures on the Nibiru site, Yahoo Images. Yahoo has an image site, and you can put in anything you want. Birthday parties. You're going to get pictures. Cakes. Llamas. Anything you can imagine. Put in Nibiru. Put in Anunnaki. And be fascinated. Stuff that they're claiming. People with telescopes. Apparently numerous astronomers have been mysteriously dying. Are they dying because, I think this is one of the sites on the internet that you can log on to and look at the stars. I think this was up there once, and then Google X'd it out with a big black square. You couldn't see it. I remember looking at it. So here you got this supposed planetary thing that's supposed to be coming and cruising through our solar system, causing a great disturbance, apparently like it did in this book, clearly described thousands and thousands of years ago. And the Anunnaki, apparently, according to this book, went out of their way to save some of the humans against the commands of Enlil, another Anunnaki. And according to this book, which I will read from and go make another video, it's so fascinating of a story. But finally, the war between the descendants of Enki and Enlil, the different sons and daughters and factions and communities, they actually unleashed a nuclear war on Earth, causing a lot of humans to die. There's a lot of evidence of that over there in the deserts in the Middle East. Whenever you have a nuclear explosion, like in the Midwest in the United States, the sand crystallizes into glass. And over there they have evidence of nothing growing and all this crystallized green glowing glass in the sand. So the story with the tablets was from Enki calling one of the earth scribes, the people who wrote things down, and said, I want to tell the story of history so that it can be told with the truth, according to Zecharia Sitchin. Now, is this all a facade? Is it all a fraud? Some people have said so. When they use names like Abel or Cain or Adam for the created human beings, and Cain killing Abel as per the Christian Bible, and much more when I make future videos on this, you're going to go to yourself, what the heck? And all this other stuff. Nexus magazine, these pictures, all the videos, people saying they're seeing a second sun, and if it does get close, will it cause some kind of electrical discharges? Is that how big Nibiru is compared to Earth? These are things people are saying. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck's going on, as we all know, with my video series. People apparently using their telescopes and seeing this. Some renderings of what it might look like when you wake up one day and see two suns in the sky. The path through the heavens. Is it planet Nibiru, planet X? Is this what created all the Egyptian temples, the Sphinx, the facilities in the Romanian the Gushi Mountains, with all that high-tech equipment? And the caves and markings in Peru and Ecuador and all over the world. Gigantic stones the size of school buses or buildings. And even in this book, reading the story, it says they built their spaceport by the gigantic cedar forest. Do you know where the gigantic cedar forests are? They're over there in Lebanon next to these gigantic stones. That's where they built their spaceport, as reported on the cuneiform stones in this book. So here's clues get warm in search of planet X. So they were searching before Planet X. Why? Because somebody found those cuneiform tablets and decoded them. Other ancient text, stories, talking about it. So while that's all going on planet Earth, they're building underground facilities for the elites. You can go on YouTube and look up videos about that. The government's purchasing 450 million to 1.2 billion hollow point bullets. And there's no sane reason to use hollow point bullets on people. It's just satanic. Evil. And we know 911 was a fraud. A lot of the crisis actors using these shootings apparently going on in the last few days in New York. There's videos on YouTube saying there are crisis actors getting up on the microphone talking to the reporters about some recent bombings in New York. And there's another video showing tanks and military vehicles in New York. So apparently somebody's getting ready for something, as I keep saying. Will we all be caught off guard and made to believe that it's this? See how that parallel solar system, Nibiru's apparently going to be interacting with our solar system in the middle? And why would it only be every 26,000 years? Well, with the thing called precession, apparently our solar system slowly turns like that. A couple degrees every year. So it takes 26,000 years for the whole thing to do a 360. Like I said, go on the website, the solar system, the galaxy, Yahoo Images, make some of these photos. They make for a great story. Help you learn a little bit about the stars, and so maybe this is what they're saying is going to happen. Nibiru, 2 solar systems about to interact. Apparently, they say, causing the cause of the changes on planets throughout our solar system. The heating up of Earth inside, and probably the heating up of the sun if it is heating up. Is that the truth? I don't know, or is it a big piece of propaganda? A big lie, a big deception? Which in my opinion appears to be the truth, the true story. It's a big deception. For some elitist people, which is not a deception, or live on this planet, buy all the books and other evidence, this Georgia's USA Guidestones, indicating they want to eliminate the population, and all the books, H.G. Wells, Jewish Utopia, Freemasonic literature, Ecoscience, Paul Ehrlich, Population Bomb, Paul Ehrlich, and many more books. I've gone over them. The books I have of them building underground facilities. Politicians these days are just basically lying to us, deceiving us 24/7, and now we have to choose between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Two very seemingly unlikely people to be president of the United States, a leader of the world. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.